Hi guys, hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel. I'm back today with a video on all my tips of what to do when you first move in to a new property. So this video is for both people who are renting, so you might be a student or somebody in a house share or somebody that's just renting your own new property. You might be part of a couple and you've just moved into a new place. Or you may have just bought your own home and you're a first-time buyer, or you've just moved into a new place from a previous one. Either way, this is all of my tips on what to do on that first week when you first move in. Just a little checklist for you and some things that I've experienced that have really helped me out. So I think I've moved about 7 times. I've rented all different flats all over London, in house shares, flats of my own, and also I'm now a homeowner. So I've got a bit of experience of all of these different things. But generally speaking, I think the first week, the tips that I'm going to be giving you will probably be applicable in whichever situation that you're in. But if you have just moved into your new place, congratulations, because I do know what a struggle that can be, just finding it in the first place, and also the move itself, because that is so much hard work. And yeah, so if you're watching this and you've just settled into your new place, then well done, and you are halfway there. So my first tip for you is all about the locks and the keys. If you're renting, the first thing I would suggest that you do is get a spare set of keys cut. It's not going to cost you very much. Hopefully you've probably just got like the Yale and the Chubb lock. So get a spare set cut. I'm sure the landlord won't mind. You probably don't even have to tell them. And give that spare set to a friend that lives nearby. If you lose your keys and you don't have a spare set, the alternative is going to be phoning up your landlord and having them to either come out, which they may charge you for, or you're going to have to get a locksmith, which is very expensive, definitely more expensive than getting a spare set of keys. And also it's all the time and the hassle, so I really recommend you do that. If you're a first-time buyer or a new homeowner, it's a similar thing really. I suggest you get spare keys cut and do the same thing, but you also may want to consider changing the locks. I actually don't always do this, but what I tend to do is maybe just change one of them. I don't think it's very cost effective to change all of them. So for example, if the door has got a Chubb lock and a Yale, then I would probably just change the Yale and leave the Chubb lock, because I could do that myself and I think it's unnecessary to do both. If someone had got a spare set of keys, it's not going to work in one of the locks, so the chances are they're going to be deterred. My next tip is a really important one, and that is to straight away make sure that you've got a smoke detector and a carbon monoxide detector in the flat, and make sure they're working. So if you're renting, your landlord should be providing these, and they should also be providing you with a gas check certificate. So that should be there just to show that the boiler, if it's a gas boiler, is safe, and that should be checked every year, and you should be given like a carbon copy print out of that, and that is a legal requirement for your landlord to do. If you're in a new home that you've just bought, you probably should consider getting a gas engineer out to check over the boiler and just to make sure it's safe. And I don't get mine done every single year. I think it's recommended to, but every couple of years I get my boiler serviced and I get it checked out. And yeah, make sure that you've tested your smoke alarm and your carbon monoxide alarm as well. I do believe that the fire brigade, depending on what area you're in, will actually come and give you a free fire sort of safety inspection as well. So you might want to investigate that, because they can just come to your house, give you some advice on things like closing doors when you're out, checking your fire alarms, knowing your escape routes and all that kind of stuff. So just spend a bit of time sorting that out. It's better to be preventing anything bad happening. So yeah, definitely an important one for week 1. Another thing you should probably sort out in the first week is insurance. Now, if you're renting, I don't actually think that you may necessarily want to get insurance. I'm talking about contents insurance now, which is the sort of insurance that protects your belongings from things like, I guess, fire damage or theft, or accidental damage sometimes, or breakages. I would say just add up how much all of your stuff is worth, and And think also how kind of responsible you are, how good you are at locking the doors, all that kind of stuff, and you might want to weigh it up. If you're somebody that is a bit of a nightmare, you may want to consider getting it done, because it can obviously pay out. But equally, if your stuff isn't worth an awful lot, then you may be paying for something that you're not really needing. If you're a homeowner, you definitely do need to get buildings insurance. It's usually a regulation on your mortgage, and it just protects the building if anything would happen to the building, including anything structural. That is not to be confused with contents insurance, so you may want to have that as well if you're a homeowner. One tip I've got for you if you're getting your buildings insurance is that they will ask you what the sort of overall value of your property is, and they will calculate it based on that. But actually you just need to work out what the rebuild cost is of your property. So it's literally what it would cost if you were to build it all again with bricks and mortar and pay the builders to do that. It is not what it is actually worth on the property ladder, which could probably halve those costs. Another thing I would do when I first move in somewhere is take photographs of the entire place. If you're renting, it's a really good idea to do this because it can help with any disagreements with regards to getting your deposit back. So you've got an actual picture record of the condition that all the different rooms are in. And you can just keep them on your phone or email them to yourself. And if you bought your place, it's just a really interesting thing to look back on, because when you first get it, oh, the battery's low. When you first get your place, it's going to be in probably a different condition to how you're going to end up making it. So it's a really nice thing to look back on. So definitely take some pictures for your records. Whilst we're talking about keeping records, it's also a good idea to take a picture of your tenancy agreement and just email it to yourself. Paperwork does get lost and it's an important document. Again, it's really useful for things like getting future tenancy agreements or references, and you may need it when it comes to getting your deposit back. So just take a quick snap of it and email it to yourself. And then you've got it. And I'd also do that with all the deeds and the various documents that you may have been given from solicitors if you're buying a place. Obviously you're going to get the paper copies because they still do it all in a really old-fashioned way, but take either scan it all in or take a photograph, and you've got those safely online in case anything was to happen to them. My next tip is to write down the date that you've actually moved in. Write it down in your diary, send an email to yourself. You would not believe the amount of forms I've had to fill in over the years where they want to know what date you moved into a place, what date you moved out of a place, what the address was. And by the time you've moved around a few different places, it does get quite sketchy. You can't remember it all. So make a note of it, somewhere that you can easily access it. It will just make your life a little bit easier next time you're coming to filling all those sorts of forms out. I think it's a really good idea in the first week to tackle any problems if you're renting a place. So if there's any little niggles, like there's a dripping tap, or the bed's, something's wrong with that, or anything that you know is going to start bugging you, mention it in the first week. The chances are that then it's going to get dealt with, whereas if you leave it, you're probably not going to feel like you want to get in touch with the landlord so much. They might be elsewhere doing other things, but in that first week they're probably going to be a bit more in contact with you. So it's just a great time to get these things sorted out, and then you can just relax into the place that you're living in. If you bought a place, don't worry about it, because trust me, those niggles and jobs, they never end. I would also say hello to your neighbours in the first week of being there. Again, it's something that's good to sort of get out of the way. It's really nice to just introduce yourself. It's good for your safety, it's good for the community around you, and it's just a friendly thing to do. You don't have to make anything formal of it. You could just make a point of saying hello to them if you're passing them in the corridor. You could just ask them a random question. Ask them what time the bins get collected or something like that, just to make a bit of contact with them and show that you're a friendly person that is willing to get on with them. It's just much better just to start talking to people that are around you basically, and making friends with them. Okay, my next tip is another really important one, and that is to locate the whereabouts of your stopcock and also your fuse box. So the stopcock is basically the tap thingy that will switch off the water supply into your property. Do not wait to locate it until a leak happens, which is what we did. We were going on holiday, we were turning all the taps off nice and tight, when pushing on the kitchen tap, it snapped the whole tap off and there was a fountain of water coming out. We didn't know how to stop it. It caused so much damage in probably about 3 or 4 minutes, and obviously swear words, screaming, shouting, nightmare situation. The water went down through our kitchen into the neighbour's property below. It was an absolute nightmare. All because in that few minutes we had to look for the stopcock. If we'd have known where it was, because we're in a flat, it's actually not within the flat. I expected to find it under the sink, but it was actually downstairs in the main hallway. If we'd have known this and we'd bothered to actually locate it beforehand, one of us could have run down there and switch it off. But instead we were throwing things out from the under the sink cupboard, and it was traumatic. So don't make that mistake and locate your stopcock. It's basically like a tap that's on a pipe. That's all it is. And just test it. Make sure it's, because sometimes they get really seized up as well. And the other one is the fuse box. So that is where all your electrics go through. If you've got a power cut, that is where you're going to be heading. So make sure you've got a torch, but actually everyone's got a phone these days, so you don't really need a torch, but make sure you know where that fuse box is, because again, you don't want to wait till you're in pitch black darkness to be searching the entire property to find that. Okay, so my last tip is just to celebrate where you're living now. So I think it's really important to crack open a bottle of champagne or whatever it is that you like to drink, order a takeaway. You've worked really hard just to get into the property. So obviously you want to start enjoying it in your first week, as well as all of that boring stuff that I've already just covered. So make sure that you're going to celebrate it. Maybe have a little housewarming, that's always a nice thing to do. But yeah, definitely enjoy yourselves in your first week. Get to know the place, get to know your neighbours, get to know your surrounding areas, and just enjoy being in your new home and spending time there. So I hope you found this video useful. What would be great is if you could share in the comments below any tips that you've got. So any viewers can also have a look in the comments below and just share any tips for moving day, moving week. And also let me know down there if there's any other sort of videos in this kind of area, like house stuff, I guess, that you'd like me to cover, and I will do my best to do that, and I'll also answer any questions that you may have for me in the comments below. So please feel free to ask whatever you want related to this, obviously. I mean, well, you can ask what you like, but you may not get an answer. And the other thing to do is be sure to subscribe, because I will be doing more videos similar to this kind of thing, and also there's all of my other kind of lifestyle stuff going on as well. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button, because I would love to have you back here to have another chat again very soon. So thanks very much for watching, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.